Hello and welcome to English 411, which is a senior seminar in creative writing. My name is Tanya Perkins and I'm your instructor this semester. Our senior seminar this semester is going to take up hybrid genres, so I'm really excited about it. As graduating students, as graduating English majors in creative writing, you've spent quite a bit of your time writing short stories, poetry, maybe essays, and that's all great. But now you've accumulated, hopefully, quite a bit of work over all of the coursework you've done. And my goal for you this semester is to return to that work, to start thinking about it again, and thinking about maybe the untapped potential in that work. One of the frustrations of writing fiction or poetry or whatever within an academic semester or within an academic setting is that you're always working under these artificial timelines or these artificial deadlines, right? And you finish a course, and I know when I was an undergraduate, that might have been the last time I looked at a short story or a poem I did in a course. And yet I think that there's probably some really good stuff that you've created over these past few years. And we're going to use the potential and power of hybrid genres to revisit the work you've done. So in this course, this creative writing course is maybe a little bit different than other creative writing courses you've taken in that we're really not going to be creating anything new. We're not going to be creating any brand new characters or poems or anything. But instead, I'm going to be asking you to excavate the work you've done over the past several semesters and use that as raw material in experimenting with hybrid genres. Okay, so a little bit of nuts and bolts. I don't think I introduced myself. I'm Tanya Perkins. I'm a full-time member in the English department. I received my master's at Western Washington University in Bellingham, Washington, and my MFA from Murray State University in Kentucky. And my specialty, my focus is fiction. I primarily write short fiction, although lately I've been experimenting with hybrid genres, and that has really elicited my interest in this. Okay, so this is an entirely online course. So all our work is going to be done via Canvas modules. I've set up the Canvas site into modules, and I'm hoping that everyone is familiar with that, so that you can start at the very first module and work your way through each module sequentially. Modules are organized by week, so everything you, I think that's my phone, everything you need for a given week is within that module. So just work through it sequentially. So we have 3 assigned texts. We're going to be using this text published by Rosemetal Press. Rosemetal Press is a small independent press that specializes in experimental, multimedia, and hybrid genres. And so this anthology that we're going to be looking at is really quite an excellent book because it allows us to delve into, albeit somewhat briefly, into a variety of experimental or hybrid forms. So it offers essays as well as samples of the work. One of the things I like about the essays is that the essays are written by the same writers whose work is included in the anthology. And oftentimes these writers talk about their creative process. I think listening to a writer talk about how he or she goes about creating the work that they do is fascinating, and I'm hoping that that in itself will be useful to you. We're going to be looking at 2 other hybrid works. Paisley Rechdell's Intimate, there it is. I met Paisley a few years ago at the Kentucky Women Writers Conference, and her book had just come out. And this book, from the moment I read it, I just haven't been able to stop thinking about it. It is a true hybrid work in that she combines, and let me just say the book itself is a hybrid work. some of the pieces within it might not be considered hybrid themselves, but taken together, it's quite an unusual work. She combines vintage photographs from the early part of the 20th century of Native American peoples, along with very short essays, like mini essays, poetic memoir, so little excerpts from her life, as well as poetry. And I don't want to say, I don't want to say flash fiction, but I guess it would be lyric essay or short form essay. So all of these are combined to create something quite cohesive. And as you read through it, you'll see that there are themes that arise throughout the work in each of these little pieces, and she manages to bring them together. There's a strong autobiographical quality to it. Obviously, memoir is an autobiographical genre. So I'm hoping you'll enjoy it. I'm really quite in love with this book, particularly how she uses language and the way she approaches her subject. And it's very much short form. So as you go through it, you'll see that each section or each chapter is maybe a page or two. Some are even shorter than that. So that's intimate. And then we're reading this little work of, it's a flash fiction collection by Amelia Gray, AM, PM. And it's, again, a very small, short book. One of the things you might notice about the works that we're reading this semester is that none of them are published by the big publishing houses. There's no, Norton or anything like that in here. These are all small independent presses that are publishing all of these works. Tupelo Press publishes Paisley Rectal and Featherproof Books, which is a tiny little press. And I think that's not coincidental. Publishing houses in this country have sort of taken on proportions similar to the big multi-billion dollar movie studios, and that there's very, very few of them. I'm talking about the big names. And they are not willing to take risks. So that's why you have, using movies as an example, you have the big, 20th Century Fox and all the other big movie houses are just bringing out nothing but the same thing over and over again, right? Sequels and prequels and the same story with a different name, because they don't want to take the chance of truly experimental work. And that's why the really interesting movies are coming out of very small independent producers and directors with very small budgets. And I think it's very similar in the literary world. So multi or hybrid genre or hybrid works that are not easily pegged, that are not easily put into a particular hole, a square peg in a square hole, that are not immediately identifiable, tend to make big publishers nervous. And so you're not seeing them. So if you want really interesting experimental works, you have to go to the small presses. And that's why small presses are so important. We're going to talk more about that later in the semester. But anyway, okay, so what do I need to tell you? Pay attention to the modules. We're going to be using discussion forums. And oftentimes, the way I set up a discussion forum, if you've taken an online class from me before, you'll know this, is that I ask you to do a post and then come back a couple of days later and comment on others' posts. So most modules will have 2 deadlines. Generally, Thursday of every week, you will have a discussion post, and then Sunday of the same week, you'll have to make comments. So please be on the lookout for that. Don't just go by the to-do list that comes up in Canvas. Don't just use that as your guide. Okay, let me think if there's anything else I need to tell you. I think that's it. Take a look at the syllabus. Let me say that the syllabus at this point is a little bit on the tentative side. I think our readings, the scheduled readings, are probably going to stay. But there's some other activities I want to bring in that I haven't quite figured out where I'm going to put them on the syllabus. I make modules available generally 2 to 3 weeks ahead. So right now there's 3 weeks worth of modules open. And my office is in Whitewater Hall. My office hours this semester are from 11:30 to 4. I'm really looking forward to working with you. And please let me know if you have any questions or concerns.